Today is the 18th of December, and my child, something about this moment is not ordinary. This is not just another message passing through your screen, and this is not another voice competing for your attention. There is a reason the words feel heavier before you even understand them. There is a reason your instinct didn't immediately move away. Time has slowed for you right now, not because of coincidence, but because something that has been moving silently around your life has reached a point where it can no longer remain unseen. Archangel Michael's words today are sharp because softness would be ignored. "I will never talk to you if you skip me now" is not spoken to frighten you, my child, but to interrupt you. Some moments demand interruption. Some paths cannot be allowed to continue without correction. This is one of those moments. If this message feels uncomfortable, it is because comfort was keeping you unaware of something that needed to be noticed before it matured into consequence. You may have felt it recently without understanding it. A strange heaviness that arrived without explanation. A sudden sense of unease when nothing was obviously wrong. Moments where your intuition whispered that something wasn't aligned, even though your logic tried to dismiss it. My child, those sensations were not weakness, and they were not fear. They were early signals, signals meant to slow you down before something important slipped past you unnoticed. Right now, you are standing at a junction, whether you recognize it or not. One direction keeps you moving forward on momentum alone, repeating emotional patterns that quietly drain you over time. The other direction requires awareness, presence, and a willingness to pause long enough to be redirected. Archangel Michael steps forward today because the window for gentle nudges has passed. What comes next requires clarity, not comfort. There was a situation forming around you that did not carry peace in its future. Not a dramatic disaster, not a sudden collapse, but something far more dangerous in the long term. A slow erosion of energy, a subtle draining of confidence, a gradual distancing from your own intuition. These are the kinds of tragedies that don't announce themselves loudly, my child, and that is exactly why intervention arrives now. You have been carrying weight that was never meant to stay with you. Emotional responsibility that did not belong to you. Tension absorbed from someone or something that quietly leaned on your strength while weakening your direction. You felt it as exhaustion that sleep didn't fix, confusion that rest didn't clear, and emotional fog that came and went without reason. This was not your failure. It was misplaced loyalty, and today that imbalance begins to break. This message finds you now because something meant for you was delayed, not denied. Delayed by distraction. Delayed by staying too long where your spirit was asking you to move on. Delayed by trusting situations that slowly dulled your clarity. But delays have limits, my child, and this one has reached its end. A doorway is beginning to open, and it requires awareness to step through it. If you feel resistance as you read this, pay attention to it. Resistance often appears when truth is close to dismantling a familiar pattern. Familiar does not always mean safe. Familiar often means tolerated. Archangel Michael does not arrive today to threaten you, but to remove you from a path that would have cost you peace, time, and self-trust if left unchecked. Something unseen has been influencing your decisions lately, not controlling you but nudging you toward hesitation, doubt, or emotional compromise. You may have noticed yourself second-guessing instincts that once felt clear. You may have felt disconnected from your usual sense of direction. These were not random fluctuations. They were signs that your energy was being pulled in a direction that did not serve your future. Stay present now, my child, not because you are being commanded, but because awareness is protection. Every moment you remain attentive here is loosening something that has been quietly attached to your path. This is not imagination. This is alignment restoring itself. When guidance arrives this directly, it is because correction must happen before momentum carries you further than intended. You are not being warned because something bad must happen. You are being warned because something can be prevented. There is a difference. Fear paralyzes, but guidance redirects. Archangel Michael does not predict tragedy to instill panic. He intervenes to reroute destiny while choice is still available to you. Very soon, you will notice a shift in how your body and mind respond to the world around you. A lightness where heaviness once lingered. A clarity where confusion had settled. A sense of internal stability returning without effort. These are not emotional tricks. They are signals that something draining has begun to detach from your field. This moment matters, because what comes next will explain why you were guided here today, why this date is emphasized, and why skipping this message would have kept you unaware of a crucial turning point. This is not the conclusion, my child. This is the threshold, and once crossed, things cannot return to how they were before. Stay still. What follows is the part that changes how you understand everything you have been feeling. My child, now that you have crossed the threshold of awareness, you may feel a strange stillness settling around you. This stillness is not emptiness. It is space being created. When something is about to be removed from your path, the noise quiets first, the distractions soften, the urgency shifts inward. You are feeling this because something that has lingered around your life is losing its grip, and the silence you sense is the beginning of separation. There has been a pattern repeating itself in your life, subtle enough to go unnoticed, but strong enough to delay your progress. You sensed it as hesitation before decisions, as emotional fatigue without a clear cause, as moments where your confidence dipped unexpectedly. My child, these were not personality flaws or personal failures. They were indicators that your energy was being misaligned, slowly pulled away from where it was meant to flow. Archangel Michael reveals that not every danger announces itself with chaos. Some arrive quietly, wearing familiarity, comfort, or obligation. They drain rather than destroy. They confuse rather than confront. And because they do not appear threatening, they are often tolerated far longer than they should be. This is why intervention arrives now, before tolerance turns into consequence. You may be realizing that certain connections in your life have felt heavier than supportive. Conversations that left you tired instead of uplifted. Situations that required constant emotional adjustment. Expectations that demanded more than they gave. My child, your heart is generous, but generosity without boundaries becomes depletion. Heaven has watched this imbalance forming. And today marks the beginning of correction. There is something important you must understand now. Protection does not always look like addition. Sometimes it looks like removal. Sometimes it looks like distance. Sometimes it looks like confusion that forces you to pause rather than move forward blindly. What you experienced recently was not abandonment, it was shielding. What felt like delay was actually prevention. Your intuition has been trying to alert you for some time, through subtle discomfort, through recurring thoughts, through that quiet inner voice that said, something isn't right, even when logic argued otherwise. My child, intuition speaks softly, and when it is ignored repeatedly, heaven steps in more directly. This message is that step. Right now, unseen adjustments are being made around you. Energy that once influenced your mood, your focus, or your decisions is being loosened. You may feel waves of emotion without a clear reason, moments of release followed by clarity. This is not instability, it is recalibration. When something detaches, The body often feels it before the mind understands it. There was a tragedy forming not because of fate, but because of prolonged misalignment. Not a sudden event, but a slow narrowing of options, a gradual dimming of discernment. Archangel Michael intervenes not to frighten you, but to widen your path again. To return choice where momentum had begun to decide for you. My child, you were never meant to carry everything you have been carrying. Some responsibilities were assumed out of loyalty. Some burdens were accepted out of fear of disappointing others. Some emotional weights were taken on simply because you were strong enough to hold them. But strength does not mean obligation, and compassion does not mean self-erasure. As this correction unfolds, you may notice resistance from within yourself, a pull to justify staying where you are, a temptation to minimize what you are feeling. This is normal. Familiar discomfort often feels safer than unfamiliar freedom. But safety built on suppression is not safety at all. It is delay. Archangel Michael wants you to understand that the door opening now leads toward clarity, not chaos, toward alignment, not loss. What you feared leaving behind was never meant to follow you forward, and what awaits you cannot enter while your hands are full of what no longer serves you. You are being asked, gently but firmly, to remain aware in the coming hours and days. Not anxious, not hypervigilant, simply aware. Pay attention to how your body reacts to people, places, and decisions. Notice where peace increases and where tension returns. These signals are your compass during this transition. There is also something returning to you that was slowly taken without your permission. Your sense of inner authority, your trust in your own perception, your ability to decide without second-guessing yourself endlessly. As the drain weakens, these qualities will strengthen again. You will feel it as confidence that does not need validation. My child, this process is not about blame, not toward yourself and not toward others. It is about clarity. Some people did not intend harm, but their presence was incompatible with your next phase. Some situations were not evil, but they were limiting. Understanding this allows you to release without bitterness. Very soon, you will notice that decisions become easier. You will no longer need to overthink what feels right. Alignment simplifies. Confusion complicates. The difference will become obvious as your path clears. Archangel Michael also reveals that something meant for you has been waiting for space, an opportunity, a realization, a connection, a shift that requires you to be energetically available. This is why the clearing happens first. Blessings do not force entry. They wait for readiness. Do not rush this moment. Do not try to control how quickly things unfold. Trust the timing that brought you here. Trust the pause. Trust the redirection. What is leaving was not meant to stay. What is approaching will feel different because it arrives without draining you. You are not losing anything essential. You are reclaiming yourself. Stay present, my child. What comes next builds on this clarity, and it will reveal why everything you are experiencing now was necessary. My child, now that the separati on has begun, you may notice a strange emotional turbulence that doesn't follow logic. Moments of calm may suddenly be followed by waves of unease, not because something is wrong, but because something is leaving. When energy disconnects, it does not disappear quietly, it loosens first. This loosening can feel unsettling if you are not aware of what is happening. But awareness is your anchor right now, and understanding what this phase represents will keep you steady as the shift continues. You have lived longer than you should have in environments that demanded adjustment instead of authenticity. You learned to bend, to explain, to carry emotional weight that was never equally returned. My child, this pattern did not form because you were weak, but because you were kind. However, kindness without discernment becomes self-sacrifice, and heaven does not ask you to destroy yourself to prove your heart. That lesson is completing now, and completion often feels uncomfortable before it feels freeing. Archangel Michael reveals that the resistance you feel is not coming from your future, but from your past. Old attachments resist release because they rely on familiarity, not alignment. They whisper doubt, nostalgia, and fear of the unknown. But my child, the unknown ahead of you is safer than the familiar that was draining you. This is why clarity is being forced rather than suggested. The moment requires decisiveness, not delay. You may have noticed that your tolerance has changed. Things you once ignored now bother you. Conversations that once felt manageable now feel heavy. Situations that once seemed harmless now feel misaligned. This is not you becoming difficult. This is your awareness sharpening. Growth often looks like discomfort before it looks like peace, because the nervous system must adjust to higher truth. There is also grief in this phase, even if you can. Name what you are grieving. You may mourn the version of yourself that endured quietly. You may grieve the time spent waiting for situations to change that never did. You may even grieve people who were never truly able to meet you where you stood. My child, grief is not regression, it is acknowledgement. And acknowledgement is required for release to complete. Archangel Michael wants you to understand that not every warning comes wrapped in fear. Some arrive wrapped in clarity so sharp it cuts illusion away cleanly. The tragedy being prevented was not dramatic destruction, but spiritual erosion. A future where your intuition weakened, your self-trust faded, and your purpose became secondary to emotional survival. That future has been interrupted, and interruption always feels abrupt. As this process unfolds, your dreams may become more vivid, your thoughts more reflective, and your emotions more intense for brief periods. This is not imbalance, it is integration. When old energy detaches, the subconscious recalibrates. You are releasing layers that once defined your reactions, and the mind must reorganize around truth instead of habit. You are also stepping into a phase where truth reveals itself without effort. People may expose their intentions without confrontation. Situations may resolve themselves through clarity rather than conflict. Decisions that once felt impossible may suddenly feel obvious. This is not coincidence. This is alignment, removing distortion from your perception. My child, it is important now that you do not rush to replace what is leaving. Emptiness is not absence, it is preparation. The space forming around you is intentional. Something meant for you requires room to enter fully, without interference from old patterns or unresolved attachments. Filling the space too quickly would only recreate the cycle that is ending. There may be moments when you question whether you are overthinking everything. That doubt is the final echo of misalignment trying to retain relevance. Trust your inner clarity more than your mental noise. The calm moments you experience are more truthful than the anxious ones. Peace is your compass now. Archangel Michael says your role in this phase is not to fight, fix, or force anything. Your role is to remain aware and honest. Awareness keeps you from slipping backward. Honesty keeps you from betraying yourself again. These two qualities will guide you safely through what comes next. What is being prepared for you is not fragile, it is stable. It will not demand emotional compromise or constant adjustment. It will meet you where you stand instead of asking you to shrink. This is why the clearing feels intense. Your next chapter cannot begin while remnants of the old one still occupy your energy. You may soon notice a shift in how others respond to you. Some may distance themselves without explanation. Others may suddenly respect boundaries they once ignored. Do not chase explanations. Behavior is communication. Alignment always reveals truth without words. My child, the momentum that begins after this phase will feel different from anything before. It will not feel rushed. It will not feel forced. It will feel steady, grounded, and quietly powerful. That is how you will know the redirection succeeded. Remain present. Do not second-guess the discomfort. Do not romanticize what is leaving. You are not losing anything meant to sustain you. You are shedding what prevented you from fully stepping into what is ahead. What comes next builds directly on this release, and it will explain why this phase had to be precise, firm, and unavoidable. My child, as the clearing continues, you may begin to feel something unfamiliar settling into your spirit. It is not excitement, and it is no. To fear. It is steadiness. A grounded awareness that you are no longer standing on unstable ground. This feeling may surprise you, because chaos had become so familiar that calm once felt suspicious. But this calm is not empty. It is fortified. It is the result of protection engaging fully around your path. Archangel Michael reveals that what was removed could not follow you forward without damaging what was meant to grow. This is why separation happened before reward. Blessings cannot coexist with what drains them. Alignment demands integrity, and integrity requires that you walk without carrying weights that were never meant to be yours. The discomfort you felt was the cost of release, not the sign of loss. You are now entering a phase where your inner voice becomes louder than external noise. You may notice that opinions which once influenced you no longer carry the same weight. Expectations that once pressured you now feel optional. This is not rebellion. This is authority returning to its rightful place within you. When authority is restored internally, confusion loses its power. My child, something important is approaching, but it will not arrive with chaos or emotional intensity. It will arrive quietly, firmly, and with a sense of rightness. That is how you will recognize it. What is meant for you does not rush you or pressure you. It aligns with you, and alignment feels calm, even when it changes everything. You may also notice that your reactions are changing. You are less reactive, less defensive, less willing to explain yourself. This is not indifference, it is discernment. You no longer need to justify boundaries or over-communicate truth. The right people will understand without explanation. The wrong ones will reveal themselves through resistance. Archangel Michael wants you to understand that this stage is about stabilization. You are not meant to analyze every feeling or anticipate every outcome. Overthinking was necessary when intuition was blocked. Now intuition is clear. Trust it. Simplicity is returning to your decision-making, and that simplicity will protect you. There is also a quiet confidence forming in you. Not the loud kind that seeks validation, but the steady kind that does not need reassurance. This confidence comes from knowing you survived something that once threatened to wear you down. You did not escape unchanged. You emerged sharpened. And that sharpening allows you to see clearly now. My child, if you look back honestly, you will recognize that the last phase of your life required constant emotional management. You were always adjusting, compensating, or explaining. That phase is over. What comes next does not require self-erasure. It requires presence. And presence is something you already carry. Soon, you may receive confirmation that you made the right choice by staying aware. This confirmation may come as a realization, a message, or a sudden clarity that settles an old question. When it arrives, it will not shock you. It will feel inevitable, as if your spirit already knew the answer. This is where I ask you, gently, to acknowledge your presence, not out of obligation, but out of alignment. If something inside you recognizes this moment, leave a comment that reflects your awareness. And if you feel guided to stay connected, subscribe. These actions are not about numbers. They are declarations that you are choosing awareness over avoidance. Archangel Michael emphasizes that your willingness to remain present has already altered your trajectory. Paths change when attention changes. You did not need to fight. You needed to see, and seeing clearly is what stopped what could have drained you further. My child, the protection surrounding you now is active. It is not symbolic. It will show itself through timing that favors you, conversations that clarify instead of confuse, and decisions that feel right without struggle. When protection engages fully, life begins to move with less resistance. You may notice that things which once felt blocked are starting to loosen, not all at once, but enough to show movement. Momentum does not return suddenly. It builds, and each small sign is evidence that alignment is taking hold. There will also be moments where you are tempted to doubt this shift, especially if the world around you has not fully caught up yet. Do not confuse timing with absence. The internal shift always comes first. The external follows once stability is established. My child, your role now is to remain grounded, avoid extremes, avoid rushing, avoid returning to what you already outgrew just because it feels familiar. Familiarity is not confirmation, peace is. Archangel Michael says, what approaches next will not require you to compromise your intuition. It will respect your boundaries, support your growth, and reinforce your clarity. That is how you will know it belongs in your life. You are not at the end of the message yet. What comes next will bring resolution and explain why everything unfolded exactly this way. Stay present. You are closer than you think. My child, you have reached the point where the shift no longer needs to announce itself. It is already happening. The turbulence that once surrounded you is settling, not because the world suddenly became gentle, but because your position within it has changed. You are no longer standing where you once were. Something inside you has realigned, and now life is adjusting itself around that new alignment. This is how true transformation completes itself, quietly but permanently. Archangel Michael's presence feels different now, not urgent, not forceful, but steady and protective. A shield that no longer needs to be raised because the threat has passed. What was forming against your peace has lost its momentum. What was draining your clarity no longer has access. This does not mean challenges will never appear again, but it does mean you will no longer face them from a place of depletion. You are stronger, clearer, and more grounded than you were before. You may notice that your thoughts are no longer circling the same fears. Old worries may still try to surface, but they do not stay as long. They no longer root themselves in your mind. This is one of the clearest signs that the cycle has closed. When something no longer controls your inner dialogue, it has lost its power over your direction. My child, the tragedy that was being prevented was not meant to define your story. It was meant to be avoided entirely, and awareness was the key. You listened when it mattered. You stayed present when it would have been easier to scroll past, to distract yourself, to ignore the discomfort. That choice alone altered your path. Many never make it at this point, not because they are unworthy, but because they refuse to pause. You paused. What comes next will feel different from anything you have experienced recently. It will not feel heavy. It will not feel confusing. It will not feel like you need to sacrifice pieces of yourself to maintain it, whether it arrives as an opportunity, a connection, a realization, or a clear decision. It will carry a sense of alignment that you cannot mistake. You will recognize it not by excitement alone, but by peace. There is also a quiet restoration happening now. Your confidence is returning, not as arrogance, but as self-trust. You are beginning to believe yourself again. Your instincts no longer feel unreliable. Your feelings no longer feel like something to suppress or second-guess. This restoration is essential, because what comes next requires you to stand in your own authority. My child, you may soon look back on this moment and realize that it marked the end of something you struggled to name, the end of carrying emotional weight that wasn't yours, the end of explaining yourself to people who never intended to understand you, the end of staying in spaces that required you to shrink to belong. Endings like these do not come with noise. They come with relief. As the dust settles, you may notice new clarity around your future, not a full blueprint, but enough direction to take the next step with confidence. That is all you are meant to have right now. Overexposure to the future creates anxiety. Alignment reveals only what you are ready to walk toward. This is also the moment where your participation matters, not because the message depends on you, but because awareness deepens when acknowledged. If something within you recognizes the truth of this shift, take a moment to comment. Let it be simple, honest, and grounded. And if you feel guided to remain connected, subscribe. These actions are not obligations. They are markers. They anchor awareness into action. Archangel Michael reminds you that protection does not mean isolation. It means clarity about who and what is allowed close to you. Going forward, you will find it easier to say no without guilt and yes without fear. Your boundaries will feel natural, not defensive. This is how you maintain what has been restored. You may also notice that certain people drift further away now, while others step closer with respect. Let this happen without resistance. Alignment reorganizes relationships automatically. What belongs will remain. What does not will fall away without drama. Do not chase what is leaving. Space is being made for what fits. My child, the path ahead will not be perfect, but it will be honest. And honesty, eats stability. You will no longer need to second-guess whether you are betraying yourself to keep peace. Peace will come from alignment, not accommodation. The heaviness you carried for so long served its purpose. It woke you up. It forced you to listen. But it does not get to follow you forward. That chapter is complete. You are stepping into a phase where movement replaces stagnation and clarity replaces confusion. Archangel Michael's final reminder is simple and steady. Stay aware, stay grounded, trust the calm more than the noise. When something feels aligned, you will not need convincing, and when something feels wrong, you will not need permission to step away. This moment mattered because it changed direction, not through fear, but through awareness. What was meant to miss you has missed you. What is meant to find you is already moving closer. Remain open, my child. The protection is active, the path is clear, and what comes next will confirm that staying was the right choice.